Have you ever just looked at your career path and thought, what a mess? Like you're just sort of stumbling from one thing to the next, and there's definitely no grand plan in sight? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to dive into this incredible story about a journey that was anything but conventional, anything but planned. And it reveals a surprising and honestly a much more realistic truth about what it actually takes to find success. All right, let's get into it. So this whole thing comes from an anonymous user on Reddit who basically laid out their entire winding career for everyone to see. And they started with this quote. I mean, it just sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? There's no ego, no follow my 10 steps to get rich nonsense. It's just pure, raw honesty. And this hope that maybe, just maybe, their accidental journey has a lesson in it for the rest of us. It's a great reminder that sometimes the best stories are the ones we never ever meant to write. Okay, so to really get what's going on in the story, we first need to understand the kind of person we're talking about. Because this isn't just some random tale. It's actually a classic example of a specific personality type running headfirst into a very common and very real problem. I mean, does any of this sound familiar to you? You've got a million amazing ideas buzzing around in your head. You get super fired up about starting new things, but when it comes to the boring day-to-day grind of actually doing the work, you kind of lose steam. If you're nodding your head right now, you might just identify with a personality type that's often called the campaigner, or in Myers-Briggs terms, an ENFP. And our main character? A textbook example. This right here, this is the core of the problem. You've got people called the inspirer for a reason. They are fantastic at getting things started, at getting everyone else excited. But their greatest strengths are directly tied to their biggest challenges. On the one hand, they want freedom. They hate being boxed in by rules and routines. But on the other hand, real, tangible success, well, it often requires the very things they can't stand: structure, routine, and that nitty-gritty long-term follow-through. And that paradox, that's the engine driving this whole story. All right, let's get into the story itself and see how this whole paradox played out in the real world. What you're about to see is basically a highlight reel of what looks like, from the outside, just a series of failures and questionable decisions. But stick with me here, because this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at this timeline. It's a complete roller coaster. He drops out of art school with only a year left to go. His dream of being a freelancer immediately crashes and burns. He takes a job he doesn't even want, purely out of desperation. And then just when he starts to get some stability, bam, the rug gets pulled right out from under him. On paper, this does not look like the start of a success story. It looks like a classic case of someone who just can't get their act together. And here's the kicker. He knew it. He was totally self-aware about his lack of direction. He straight up admits he chose art school not because he had this deep, burning passion, but because, well, it was the easy way out. He wasn't willing to put in the thousands of hours of practice it takes to be truly great. And this honesty is so important. He wasn't blaming the world for his problems. He was looking in the mirror. So after that freelance dream died, this was his new reality: $15 an hour. He literally called it accepting defeat. It was the absolute opposite of the creative, free life he had imagined for himself. But this moment, this low point, it was about to become the single most important turning point of his entire life. And here it is. This is the moment the whole story pivots. His boss can't find a web designer, so he asks our guy if he'd think about learning. He says no. But the boss is desperate, right? So he comes back with a new offer. I will pay you your normal salary for 2 full weeks to do nothing but sit at your desk and watch online video courses. He was literally being bribed to learn a new skill. And you have to understand, his resistance was absolute. He had this fixed idea of himself. I am an artist. Coding seemed like this alien, awful thing. I mean, he describes looking at code as a horrible wall of text. And this just perfectly illustrates one of the main themes here. So often, our biggest opportunities are disguised as the very things we're actively trying to run away from. He had zero interest in what would eventually become the career that changed his whole life. Okay, so we've got this amazing, chaotic story, but you have to ask yourself, why did it actually work out? It wasn't because of some brilliant plan. It wasn't even what he wanted. So what was really going on underneath it all? Well, this is where we can zoom out from one person's story and look at the actual psychological skills that let people thrive, not just survive, in chaos. This is the exact kind of question that big think tanks like the OECD, that's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, are obsessed with. They study what really makes people successful in work and in life, And, spoiler alert, it's not always about having a perfect resume or a neat 5-year plan. It's about a much deeper set of social and emotional skills. So the OECD's framework is built around what psychologists call the Big Five personality traits. Don't worry about the jargon. This table breaks it down into 5 core skills. For our story, we're going to zero in on the 2 that were absolutely critical for our guy, even when he had no idea he was even using them: task performance and emotion regulation. Okay, task performance. Really, all this means is grit. It's that ability to make yourself do something hard, even when you have zero motivation. Our narrator wanted nothing to do with coding, but when he was offered that bride, he sat down and he did the work. He watched those video courses day after day. That single act of just forcing himself through that initial discomfort, of applying self-discipline when he'd rather be doing anything else, that's a perfect example of this skill in action. It's the muscle that gets you through the boring stuff to get to the good stuff. And this one might be even more important. Emotion regulation isn't about not having feelings. It's about what you do with them. Remember when he got laid off from that agency job, the one he loved, the one that finally made his parents proud? His world should have collapsed. But his reaction was just stunning. He wrote, "That morning I walked in smiling. That evening I walked out carrying my stuff in a box, but I was still smiling." That isn't denial. That is elite-level resilience. It's the ability to immediately see an opportunity hidden inside a crisis. All right, so let's put it all together. We've got this story that's just full of setbacks, and we've got the psychological skills that helped him get through them. But the real magic happens when you realize these setbacks weren't just obstacles on his path to success, they were the path itself. Wow, I mean, this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at the difference between what he planned and what actually happened. Every single one of his major life goals either failed or got completely turned upside down. His plan to be an artist failed, which led him to programming. His plan to avoid code at all costs failed, which led him to a high-paying career. His plan to keep a stable job failed, which led him to 4 years of traveling the world. The key insight here is that his success wasn't in spite of the chaos, it was because of it. Let's break it down. It's like a chain reaction, a domino effect. Each failure was really just a doorway to the next thing. Failing at freelancing pushed him into a stable job. Being bored and unfulfilled in that job made him say yes to the bribe to learn to code. Getting laid off from his good job was the thing that finally kicked off his dream of traveling. It's this perfect chain where every negative event creates the exact right condition for the next positive one. And this is his own reflection on his entire journey, and it's just incredible. He realized that the universe, or luck, or whatever you want to call it, was pushing him in the right direction even as he was fighting it tooth and nail. It's such a powerful idea. He fought against learning to code, and it became his ticket to freedom. He was crushed when he got laid off, and it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him. And his final question is really the ultimate takeaway for all of us. What if we stopped resisting the unexpected turns in our lives and just started cooperating with them? So, what does this whole wild story really mean for us, right here, right now? How can we actually apply this lesson of cooperating with chaos in our own lives, especially if we feel like we don't have that perfect, straight-line career plan? This quote from the writer Deborah Smouse just hits the nail on the head. The reason our protagonist's story is so powerful is because it proves that there is no one single right way to be successful. That whole hyper-organized 5-year plan approach might work wonders for some people, but for a creative, free spirit type, it can be a recipe for absolute misery. Real success is about finding a system that works with your personality, not against it. So when you boil it all down, what are the big ideas to walk away with? First, it's about changing how you see things. Instead of picturing a straight line to success, you have to learn to embrace the detours. That's where the real growth happens. Realize that what you think is a weakness might actually just be an openness to new opportunities. Focus less on a rigid plan and more on building those core skills like resilience and discipline. And maybe most importantly, learn to see setbacks not as failures, but as plot twists in your own awesome story. I want to leave you with this one question to really think about. Look back at your own life. Think about those moments that felt like total failures, the rejections, the layoffs, the plans that completely fell apart. What did they force you to do? Who did they force you to become, and what new path did they open up for you that you never would have found otherwise? Because as the story proves, sometimes the right path only becomes clear after you've been knocked off the one you thought you wanted.